Um, my name is Elizabeth Gardner. I am a customer success manager here at ActivePipe. And today we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the value you can get out of ActivePipe that has to do not with what you're sending out, but with what you're receiving back. So before we dive too deep in, I'm going to send out my poll per usual, just to make sure that you can all hear what I'm saying and that you can also see my screen currently. So go ahead and answer that for me just so I know we're all doing good. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So let's just dive in. So we'll start. I have just a brief couple of points to go through here, and then we will dive in to the platform and take a look at some of the things that can be useful tools for you. So on a broad scale, let's talk about why email marketing can be valuable to you in general. So, as I'm sure you are very much aware, there's a lot of different strategies that you can use out there. Facebook targeted ads, old school with postcards, but email marketing, without a doubt, is the tried and true method, as I like to say. So, it might sound simple, but it is pretty much undebatable. So at this point, everyone uses email. Your competitors and your consumers alike, everyone's got an email at this point in 2020. So that's your first major benefit. Email is truly expected at this point from any business professional. It's a professional marketing medium that people expect to receive, and cases show that 72% of people prefer to receive promotional content through email compared to 17% who prefer social media. So, like I said, everyone uses it and it's an expectation at this point. The other really interesting statistics that I kind of like to throw out there that's specific to you guys in real estate is that according to the National Association of Realtors, the largest share of home buyers over the past couple of years have been millennials. And 73% of millennials prefer communications from business to come via email compared to any other source. So it's definitely relevant to be using in general. The second key advantage that I would point out is that it's accessible. Any business, whether your size, you could be a huge multi-million volume team, or you could be one single agent who just does maybe a couple of sales a year. It's accessible to anyone. It can scale. And it's inexpensive. So email generates $38 for every $1 spent, which is an incredible 3,700% return on investment. So to say it's effective is an understatement. The last benefit that I would point out, just in general about value, is that email is a tool that is incredibly measurable compared to a lot of other marketing tools out there. So you can directly track exactly what you're getting back, which we'll take a look at in a moment, from what you're sending out. So you won't necessarily get that with old school paper marketing. And social media tends to make it a little bit difficult to actually measure results. Whereas in ActivePipe, you get a lot of information back that you can track your results from. So in general, these are the top benefits that I would probably point out to you. But the one thing that I kind of want to shift your focus on, possibly today with this webinar, is that yes, we're talking about email marketing, and most of the time these webinars are going to be focused around probably what content you're sending out or how you're sending out that content. Probably we've done a lot. The last one we did last week was about newsletters, so you've certainly sat in on a lot of webinars probably that talks about what you're sending out. But I today am going to suggest that maybe we should shift our focus and really start thinking about what you're receiving back from everything that you're sending out. And how can you use that to qualify the contacts that you already have in your database so that you're getting the most information that you can out of the list that you already have. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the key places that I would recommend that you're looking at once you start sending and once your campaigns are going out the door. So, the first, when you come into ActivePipe, you are pretty much consistently always going to land in your dashboard. And there's a lot of stuff going on your dashboard. I'll also caveat this that your dashboard might look slightly different than mine. Not to worry, we do have a couple of different versions of this, but the principles will remain the same. So when you first get into ActivePipe, you land in your dashboard, and there's some good stuff here that I would say make sure to keep an eye on that. The first one that I would say, if you take away anything from this webinar, anything at all, this would be the one thing. And I would tell you to keep an eye on these highly interactive contacts. So everyone, no matter what dashboard variation you have, you're gonna have somewhere on it, you'll have highly interactive. And these folks, this list, if you click on it, this list of people are the people who are consistently opening your emails and clicking. So these are the top folks who are engaging with what you're sending out. So in short, what I would say, if you aren't up to speed, if you haven't talked to these people, if you're not up to date on what their needs may or may not be, maybe you should take a look and give them a call and see if you can get up to date. It's very likely that you might go through this list of 23 people, and even if you get two ready for action leads out of this, you're already ahead of the game. You now have two more people that you did this morning. So highly interactive contacts, I would definitely tell you to take a look at these and make sure that you are reaching out to these people and you know what's going on in their priorities. The great thing about this is that you have their phone number and their email right here to get in touch. The other thing that this will segue into that I'll show you here is you can, in this list, you can click into any contact that you are interested in. And if you navigate into the property interactions tab here, so I'm in my contact profile, I'm clicking on property interactions. Now I can take a look at all this data that I've gotten back just from what Kiera here has been clicking in their emails. So the first thing I can see, because I have Kiera's address saved to her contact profile, firstly, I see that this is where she's currently living, this little person icon, that's where she's currently living. And then all these other turquoise looking blips are the properties that she has clicked on. So if I just take 30 seconds here and I click through a couple of these, okay, so near her, she's looking maybe at 4-bedroom houses. Okay, yep, that looks fairly consistent. But then over here in this little section of town, Kiera is looking at, looks like some 2-bedrooms, and that's a pretty consistent theme. So before I even pick up the phone to call Kiera, I now know that what it's looking like she's probably interested in doing is selling a 4-bedroom home where she currently lives, and she's looking for a 2-bedroom home over here near Concord. So I don't have to randomly make a cold call now. Now I can say, hey, Kiera, I've noticed over the past couple of months, you've been looking at maybe doing some self-appraising near your current address, and that you're also looking for some 2-bedrooms near Concord. When can I get you with some tours, some home inspections, and some open houses scheduled? What can I do to show you those top properties? So you don't have to make any phone calls without knowing what your contacts are already interested in. So this is a huge value. And again, you could go through and look at that across any and all of your highly interactive contacts. The other thing directly below highly interactive is up and coming. And it's very similar, but slightly different. So it's worth mentioning the difference here. Up and coming contacts are the folks who have been in your contact list for a while. And in the past, maybe they weren't really engaging with your emails. They weren't opening that many, or they weren't clicking on any enough to really, send off many bells or whistles. However, now recently, they've made some clicks. They've done a little bit more interaction. So up and coming are the folks who have been in your contact list for quite some time, but are recently re-engaging. So that could signal that they're suddenly now looking to either buy or sell or both. So these would also be people that you would want to keep an eye on and look at the information that's coming back from them based on their engagement. And likewise, you can click into their contacts account and you would be able to see any property interactions. And then the other thing that you can look at is their timeline. And their timeline is going to show you their engagement. You can go back however late you need. You could even search a particular time range if you needed to by looking over here on the right and setting a date and time range. But it will list out what emails they've opened, what properties they've clicked on, and etc. So that you, again, if you wanted a time perspective on how they've been engaging with your content, you can certainly look at that too. Now, the last thing I will show you from your dashboard are going to be your requests. So let me pull up an image here. So depending on your dashboard, you are going to see one of two things. So the first might look something like this, where you'll have two boxes on top of each other, private sharing requests and open houses. So in this case, if you've been sending out like a weekly just listed email, it's very likely that you might have a button on each of those property panel sections that says something like request a private showing. And that's because that's it tends to be a built-in for most people when they include a property section in their email. So you may have a button in your emails that says request a private showing. Now, if you do that, it's great because it's a call to action for anyone who is genuinely interested in that property. And if they select that, two things are going to happen. First of all, you will get an email notification right away. So ActivePipe will email you and say, hey, Ben is requested a private showing on property XYZ. Now, if you happen to get several of those in a day and you're like, holy cannoli, this is great. This is a great problem to have, but I can't keep all these emails straight. You wouldn't be the first. And so if that is the case, then you can also access that list here in ActivePipe. And again, you could click in and see what they've been looking at, where and when. So definitely keep an eye out for any private sharing requests, especially if you are sending out regular new property emails. Now, if your dashboard doesn't include this, it may include something that looks like this, where you have a requests box. And if this is the case, then this is where you would find those private showing requests. They would show up in this section. And again, you would click into the section that you need, and then you could go into anyone's property profile. So again, none of this is based on the content necessarily that you're including in your emails, but all of this is useful information that's coming back to you to keep an eye on. So a couple more things we'll go through here. Let's take a look at one of my favorite little tricks that I've seen other agents do. If you have a home, especially if that home is maybe taking a moment or two to sell, if it's been sitting for a moment, and your sellers are kind of getting antsy, or maybe if it's not even sitting, but you just want to be able to take some great data back to your seller clients, what you can do is you can go into that property in ActivePipe. So there's two methods of doing that. I just did it straight from the dashboard. If it happens to be in your popular properties section here, you can just click into it. You could also go into it from the properties tab here and then search for the address up top in the right-hand corner. So two different methods there. I just happened to click into it. So once you got into the property in question, you get some great information here that you could directly report back to your seller clients that demonstrates how hard you're working to get this house sold. So the really great thing here is you can tell them exactly how many eyeballs have been on their property through email. You can tell them how many people have opened that email, and you can also tell them directly how many clicks have been driven to that property as well. Then directly below that, you will also get a list of the most highly engaged contacts based on this property. So in this case, Darian here has clicked on this property 16 times. So if you wanted to, you could certainly, if you haven't already spoken to these people, you could certainly give them a ring, ask them, when can I get you scheduled to take a tour, show you around. The one thing I will point out here is that Darian very likely could be a buyer and might actually be interested in buying this property. Darian also could be the next door neighbor who's doing self-appraisal. Now, if that is the case, that's obviously it's not someone who might be buying the home, but you could also have a seller client there with Darian. So always worth taking a look in here if you are trying to get people in to see the property. Now, the one little trick I will show you here is if you wanted to share these numbers directly with your client, whether you print them out or email them, if you just do a good old fashioned Control P on this image, you will notice that that contact list is not included, and that's intentional. So that way, if you wanted to share this with your clients, you're not distributing contact information. The other thing that not everyone knows is that certainly you could print this and hand it to them in person, but a lot of times these days, especially, we are doing things virtually and over email. So you can just, instead of choosing to print to your printer, you can save as PDF, you save it to your computer, and you shoot it over to your client in an email, directly demonstrating how much traffic you're driving to their home. Pretty cool trick there. All right, the other thing we'll go through and just take a look at is campaign reporting. So after you send out an email, you will always be able to find it in your campaigns tab here, and it'll be listed out. And then when you click into it, you'll first come to a page that might look like this. This is how you sent out that email to begin with. But then we also have this option to view report. And so that's what I'm going to do, view report. And now what this is telling me is this is specifically to the campaign that I sent out, whether it's a recurring automated cadence campaign or if it's a quick send, went out once. Either way, this is going to show me all the reporting based on that email. And there's a couple things that we can look at here. So you first land on the overview page and you'll get a little timeline here that will show you when your email was opened and interacted with. You will also get the pretty standard open rate and interaction rate here. Now, you might be wondering, how is this possible? Because I'm in a demo account, not all of our data is the most accurate, but you will get your open rate and your interaction rate here just on the overview page. And then below that, this is also some really useful information for yourself. So on the left, you will get your top contacts. So based on this one specific campaign, who did I engage the most? This is really specifically useful if you are sending out a featured listing email. So if you're sending out an email with one single property or possibly highlighting the like a whole condo building or a neighborhood, something like that, then this list is especially useful because this is the people who were most engaged based on that one email that includes that one topic. Now on the right here, you'll also get your top links, and this can be useful for a couple of different things. In the case of something like a newsletter, this is going to be great information for you to take a look at and take as feedback for yourself. What are people interested in reading? If it's a newsletter, you have likely maybe included maybe a market report and maybe a couple of content pieces, so blog posts or something like that. If that's the case and you have a couple different things going on in that email, wouldn't you want to know what people are actually interested in reading? I think I would, because I would definitely want to include that in my next newsletter, right? Or I would want to do something similar to it or build off of that, right? So this is exactly where I would be able to get that feedback and know how to tweak my campaigns in the future based on this. So that's the overview page. Then the interactions and the opens pages are just a little bit of a deeper dive into that information. Um, so if you need a deeper dive, you can certainly go into those. And then the metrics page, also also useful for you to keep an eye on every once in a while, just to demonstrate to yourself where people are opening your emails. And this will emphasize my point that I always tell folks is make sure you preview your emails in mobile and desktop, because you'll see that you'll have a good sized amount of people reading your emails on mobile. So be sure to preview in both. So lots of good stuff that can be in a campaign reporting too. The other thing that is useful if you're really interested in, this type of reporting, trying to figure out what your contacts are engaging with or what they're more interested in. Another really great idea is that you could send out an email in two slightly different formats. And specifically, I would say this is a lot of people do this with their subject lines. So it's called A/B testing. And essentially, what you do is you're sending out a almost identical email, but you're just changing your subject line. And you send it one to half of your database and the other to the other half. And you see which one gets a better open rate. Now, of course, there might be some factors in there that we can't directly correlate to the subject line, but sometimes it really is about the subject line. And so it's a good way to test yourself on what is going to catch people's eyes if you're ever interested. The other thing is just to, if you don't want to do sort of like A/B testing, is just to take a note of, well, in one campaign, the subject line was just listed and the address. But then in another campaign, I did view this beautiful oceanfront home and then the address. And for some reason, everyone opened the one that said view this beautiful oceanfront home, but no one opened the one that was labeled just listed. So that would give you an indicator, well, maybe that makes a difference. Making that action-oriented subject line makes a difference. So just keeping an eye out kind of based on that, I think you can also start to get some useful insights for yourself. We're trying to, I want to give you the tools that you don't have to be a email marketing pro, but you'll become definitely more agile in your own email marketing. So that's the goal here. Let's see, anything else on my list here? I think we've actually gotten through the majority of what I wanted to be able to show you. So let me check out my Q&A and my chat and see if we have any questions. If you do have any questions, do throw them in there and we will go over them now. Oh, so first little chat I got was someone asked if last week's presentation was recorded, and if so, can they get a copy? Yes, we do record these. Right now, they aren't publicly posted anywhere, so you wouldn't be able to just like go to somewhere to find the recording. However, you can always request a recording if you need it. So Lynn, I'll make sure I get you the recording from last week, but if this ever happens in the future, and for anyone else, if you need a recording of these, you can always ask our support team, and they can definitely get you recordings for sure. I'm just writing myself a note. All right, and then someone else was asking about reviewing A/B testing. There's a lot of, we could probably do a whole team app this month at ActivePipe based on A/B testing, but the gist of it is that you're testing, really a lot of this is primarily used to test subject lines. So you send out the same, the body of the email will be the same, but you change the subject line. And so you're testing which subject line gets you the better engagement, the better open rate. So you could change some in the body if you wanted to, but a lot of times, like I said, it's used for subject line testing. So you essentially, what you want to do is you want to have a email, and then you send one version of that to half of the contact list that you're sending to, and then you send the second version to the other half. that kind of makes sense? Sarah, so as far as splitting your contact list, so this case, the easiest case or the what I would use this on is something where you're sending to multiple tags possibly. So if you're sending to 6 tags, you would send the one email to 3 of those tags and then the other version to the other 3 tags. So for a lot of people, that tends to happen for things like a monthly market report or a newsletter or something like that. All right. Anything else? Okay. Well, per usual here, I'm always going to recommend that you bookmark our help site. I'll pop it into the chat now, support.activepipe.com. We are constantly updating this with more articles and more videos on how to do almost anything in your ActivePipe. So make sure you have that bookmarked. And then as far as reaching out, if you ever need more help, certainly check out the help chat down here or email support@activepipe.com. That's pretty much it. And we this is it for the December this month at Active Pipes. So we will see you in the new year. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Alrighty, have a great day, everyone.